Hello, future trainees. It's me again. It's Miranda. And today I'm going to be answering some of your questions and assumptions about the Clinical Psychology Doctorate application process. I'm going to pick a few of these at random and tell you whether I think they are true, T for true, or B for baloney. Okay, so let's get right into it. So the first assumption is you need a master's. I'm going to say that's mostly baloney. So you don't need anything. I mean, no, you need a few things, but you don't need a master's, providing that you have a good undergraduate degree, and the definition of good at the moment is a high 2-1, so 65% and above. I certainly don't have a master's, and there's a good handful of people on my course who don't have a master's. That's worth me saying because I'm at one of the courses which is like, their reputation is an academic course, so even at those courses you don't need one. And in my case, I was not in the financial position to afford one, nor did I really have any particular desire to, or hadn't found a course that really grabbed me by the horns that I wanted to spend all that money on. So if that sounds like you, absolutely do not feel the pressure to sign yourself up for a year or two on a master's course. The only time this would be true is if maybe you got a lower grade on your undergraduate degree, so that's below 65%. I don't make the rules, that's not necessarily something I agree with, but that's how it is. Or if your undergraduate degree isn't BPS accredited and you need to do a conversion. But that's the only time. That's it. That's all it is. Okay, so on to your next assumption, which is you need NHS experience. I'm gonna say that is hot baloney. Of course, you need your work experience after you finish your studies. With that said, that can be from a variety of different places, the NHS being one of them. You might work in the private sector, you might work through charities, you might have gained some clinical experience through your RA work when you were affiliated with a university. It really doesn't matter too much. In my case, the vast majority of my experience comes from the private sector. I did, however, work for a year doing 1 day a week at a local NHS IAP service, which for me, I decided to do that just because I wanted to balance my application a little bit. So I knew I had some kind of holes in my application, that being that I didn't have much research experience, I hadn't worked in the NHS at the time, I didn't have a master's, I hadn't really sort of shopped around when it came to client groups, I'd very much stayed within child and adolescent work. And for that reason, I kind of just wanted to diversify a little bit because I felt like the only desirable characteristics I really had was the fact that I'd been an AP, so I kind of just wanted to zhuzh it up a bit. The only thing that I would consider when it comes to NHS employment is that naturally the NHS is the biggest employer of clinical psychologists. So if you do want to understand the role a little bit more and you do want to get that clinical supervision, the likelihood is that you're going to find the bulk of that work with the NHS. However, if you've scored a great position elsewhere, that is also really meaningful and valuable work. So I would not stress whatsoever if you don't have NHS experience. Right, on to your next assumption, which is, okay, a big one. The assumption is the process discriminates against minority groups. I don't really think there is anything else I can say other than true. Sorry, this isn't a spatula question. Let me put that down. That's ridiculous. But yeah, I think it would be foolish for me to say anything other than true. I think this year, if nothing else, has been a really grave and hideous reminder that racism and discrimination exists everywhere. It permeates through the very fabric of our society. So it would be naive for me to suggest that that doesn't exist in clinical psychology. If you look at the makeup of clinical psychologists, minority groups are vastly underrepresented, so there's quite clearly something going on. I don't think there has been enough research to be able to sort of definitively pinpoint what's going wrong in the process, but it must be a multitude of things. Like if you're thinking all the way back, you know, even before you fill in the application form, like say one of the criteria that we've spoken about is getting a high 2-1, well, we know that minority groups tend to underperform at undergraduate level for lots of different difficult reasons. And so that we end up shutting our doors. If you think about when you first graduate, the vast majority of jobs are scandalously low paid or completely unpaid. And that in itself means that we're shutting our doors on more and more people. And from my understanding, people from minority ethnic groups do have a lower rate of acceptance compared to their white counterparts, which again shows that there is something vitally wrong with the written and the interview process for that to be happening. But if you are listening to this and you identify as being someone from a minority group, please, please, please don't let this put you off. We need representation, we need diversity. It can only make us a more responsive workforce, one that can better understand and serve our community. Like, for me, I'm so proud to be a Latina and representing the Spanish-speaking community as a clinical psychologist, and I think that absolutely everyone, from whatever background, from whatever sort of start in life that they have, they should be able to represent their community and proudly enter a clinical psychology workforce and not have the feeling that they don't belong there. Oh, I feel this question, I'm absolutely not going to give this enough justice with the time that I have, which is really difficult, and I could go on and on and on and on about this subject, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to link some resources in the comment section when I upload this to YouTube, so you can read a little bit more about the information that's out there. Also, I know that there are lots of really amazing support groups for people from minority groups on Facebook, on Twitter, so I will also link them in the description box. I say that last part being very, very clear that the onus is absolutely not on you to modify and adjust yourself to fit what is a flawed system. It is the system's responsibility to sort its life out, and it is so, so, so long overdue. With that said, if you do feel like you'd like some support and to connect with people who are from similar backgrounds and who have had some success on the training and application process, this would be a really fantastic place to start, and I wish you so much luck. Right, so on to your next assumption, which is you need 3 or more years experience to get accepted onto the doctorate. So this is baloney. I am hesitating. I'll tell you why. So no, it is true that you only need 1 year's work experience to apply to the doctorate. So if that's where you're at right now, and you feel ready and you want to give it a crack, do it. What is the worst that can happen? You'll either get rejected, which happens to the best of us, or you'll get on really quickly, which could be a very exciting thing for your career. The only reason I hesitated is because I think it's fair to say that the vast majority of successful applicants do have more experience under their belt by the time that they do start training. The reason I say that is because I think it's important to set realistic expectations for how long it tends to take to get onto the training course. And I would hate for anyone who's fresh out of university and giving it a go for the first time to feel really, really disheartened if it doesn't work out really quickly, because all the cool kids apply to the doctorate more than once. So you'll be in absolutely fantastic company. But all jokes aside, I know that there is this pressure and rush to get on really, really quickly. I definitely felt it myself. I think what I would say is that all the experience that comes before you getting onto training, it's not wasted. It's going to be so valuable in you getting ready, 100%. And I know that everyone says this, but me getting that 1 year's extra of work experience and doing things which were sort of more sophisticated and more advanced made me feel so much more prepared now that I've started training, and I do feel way better able to kind of meet all the various demands. And I think it has really, really significantly reduced my stress levels with like all the different assignments and clinical work, just because I was more experienced at doing them on my own. So no, you don't need that much experience, but if it ends up looking like that, then that's no bad thing. Okay, so on to your next assumption, which is it's a young person's game. So I'm going to take that to mean that trainees are usually like within their mid to late 20s at the time of applying and getting on, so maybe it's less open to older applicants. I'm going to call baloney on that one. But I think that does speak to a very serious problem. I think harks back to the conversation about diversity and representation at the trainee level and at qualification. Because I think if you look at trainees and you all see them looking a certain way and following a certain path, it's really easy to think that you don't belong there or you're not one of them, which is absolutely not true. I think if you are applying at a later stage in your life and you've had a different career, that's so interesting. It's going to give you such a unique insight and it's going to set you apart from so many of the other 20-year-olds who've dedicated their life to psychology so far. You could really use that to your advantage. I think it's maybe important to consider, the responsibilities that maybe come being a bit older. Like you might have kids, you might have mortgages, and you might have other responsibilities which might make it feel more difficult to apply and to get on and to undertake training. As to the parenting aspect, a third of my year group are actually parents, and I wouldn't want to speak on their behalf because I'm sure there are so many struggles and painful conflicts that come with that, but they are managing beautifully. Honestly, they really show the rest of us up because they've got so many other things to juggle, and they always come so prepared, so articulate, and so ready to take on any challenge. It's astounding, especially if you muddle this with the whole global pandemic situation, having to rear kids and educate them. But it absolutely can be done. Please, 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 just because you think trainees look a certain way, don't think that discounts you. If anything, it's so valuable what you bring to the party. So come and join us. Okay, next one. So this is, you need publications to get onto training. That is such hot bull. Who keeps spreading these vicious rumors? And it just annoys me because it makes people feel intimidated and it makes them feel like they can't apply until they have something like that under their belt, which is just so not true. I cannot stress enough, you don't need a publication. I am living, breathing proof of that. I haven't even had a small sniff of anything that's close to a publication. I think why people come away feeling that is because there's obviously that hideous question on the form which asks you to list any publications that you may have / dissemination, and I think from there people just assume that you need to have it to meet that gold standard, but it's absolutely not true. The publication process is something that you're going to probably go through at the end of your doctorate. They're going to teach you to do that. They're going to equip you with their skills. If you've got it, amazing. If you don't, you're going to have so many other things to talk about. So take the pressure off yourself. Okay, so I think I've only got time for one more. So the last one I'm going to go for is you need lots of research experience to apply and or be good at statistics. No, it's not true. It's not. If you've done your undergrad degree or your conversion course, you will have covered research methods and the basics, and that really is all you need. Now that I've started training, we do go through everything. Obviously having a grasp of some of the basic concepts of research design is really good, but other than that, they're not going to assume any other knowledge, so there's no reason why you need to have anything. I think just on the research front though, it is worth saying, I don't know if I'm spreading nasty rumours here, but I do feel there is a consensus that there are some universities which seem to really like people who've got a strong research kind of post-grad qualification background. So if you're really, really light on experience, like I was, and you don't have the masters or anything else, then maybe it's worth just exploring some of the other options, university and course-wise, to see if there's something that would be more aligned to you and who you are. It's also really important, as much as I'm saying you don't need it, you do need to have a grasp of the basics. In all of the interviews that I attended, I was asked about research, and I did get a statistics question for the course that I eventually got accepted onto. Thanks for that. So do familiarise yourself or refamiliarise yourself with that if you're preparing for interviews and things, because it will put you in a really good position. Okay, super. I'm sorry that we didn't have time to go through everything, but thank you so much for playing truth or baloney with me. I've had a great time and I'm really looking forward to speaking to you next week about my journey. Ooh, I hate the word journey. My road to getting onto training, which involves a crisis of confidence, a comeback, and a car crash. It's going to be a good one. Speak to you then. Bye. So in my case, the vast majority of my experience comes from the private sector. I did end up for a year. So in my case, the vast majority of my experience comes from the private sector. So in my case, the vast majority of my experience comes from the private. So in my case, the vast majority of my experience comes from the private sector. However, there was a year where I did work 1 day a week at my local IAP service doing some NHS